Hey y'all, welcome back to another Epic on a Budget deck list. Today we're going to be talking about Green Stompy. It's a very interesting list that basically seeks to curve out with bunch of big creatures very quickly and basically just stomp on your opponent, but it also has kind of a pseudo combo that you can also do to just win out of nowhere. So it's kind of a fun deck to play, honestly. This is under $20 using TCG player prices. If you click the link in the description below, you will likely see a different source for prices, and this price will likely be higher. So just change to TCG player to get these prices. But anyways, let's jump into it. The idea, like I said, is big creatures. So we've got big creatures for not a lot of mana. You will notice though that it's very green mana intensive. Okay, that's actually very intentional because this deck is built around Aspect of Hydra. It's a single green for an instant. Target creature gets +X until end of turn, where X is your devotion to green. And devotion basically is just you count up the number of mana symbols of that color among permanents you control, and that is your devotion to that color. So if you have a werewolf pack leader out and a pelt collector, and that's it, then you just have devotion to green equal to 3. Okay, that's the idea. All right, so we're going to try to get that devotion up a lot higher than 3. All right, Elvish Mystic. We have 4 Elvish Mystics, okay, which cost a single green, so 1/1 that taps to add green to your mana pool. Okay, that is just a classic mana ramp creature. We don't have tons of them because we don't really need a lot of them. We really ideally would just have 1 or none. So 4 works pretty well because we do have a lot of 3 mana creatures, but we also have good 2 mana creatures, so we don't need to skip to 3 mana on turn 2. All right, and Pelt Collector is a very, very strong start as well. So we just don't really need more mana ramp. Okay, so this one is another 1/1 for a single green, and it has an interesting ability though. Whenever another creature you control enters the battlefield or dies, if that creature's power is greater than Pelt Collector's, then you put a +++ counter on Pelt Collector. All right, so as you're playing your other big stuff, or if someone kills one of your other big creatures, if it's bigger than Pelt Collector, then Pelt Collector gets bigger. And it also has another cool ability that says that if it has 3 or more +++ encounters on it, however you put them there, it has Trample. Okay, so it starts out fairly small, but pretty quickly it gets decent sized and gives itself Trample, which is nice. All right, so then let's start with Werewolf Pack Leader. So Werewolf Pack Leader costs green, and it's a 3/3, so that's a little bit bulky, right, for a 2 drop. And it has an ability called Pack Tactics. So all the Pack Tactics abilities trigger when you attack with creatures with total power 6 or greater. This one draws you a card when you do that. Okay, so since it's a 3/3, you just have to attack with another 3/3 or some other combination of creatures with at least 3 power. Except it actually has ability that takes care of most of that requirement on its own. So the ability costs 3 and a green, and until end of turn, this becomes a 5/3 and has trample and isn't a human. So if you don't, if you run out of creatures to cast, basically, you run out of stuff to cast later in the game, you can make it a 5/3 and give it trample. Okay, that is also useful with the next card we're coming to. Okay, Ram Through. This is a fascinating card. There are so many versions of what are called fight spells or bite spells, whatever. Basically, some version of a creature you control dealing damage equal to its power to a creature that an opponent controls. Some of them, fight spells, they have the opponent's creature deal damage equal to its power to your creature. Some don't. Some, will give your creature a boost before it does that. blah, 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 blah. There's lots of versions. This one, though, is rather unique in that it actually allows you to deal damage to the opponent's face. So it costs 1 green, it's instant, and target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. And this is the interesting clause: if the creature you control has trample, excess damage is dealt to that creature's controller instead. So we really like our creatures to have trample. And the nice thing is this Pelt Collector can give itself trample. Werewolf Pack Leader can give itself trample, and we'll come to another couple creatures that just have trample. Okay, but that way you can actually deal a decent amount of damage directly to your opponent, especially if they have a small creature, or if you have Aspect of Hydra. So that's kind of the combo, the pseudo combo in this deck is Ram Through plus Aspect of Hydra, and you can actually win the game without attacking, and I have done that. If you just kind of have a board stall and both players are just building up your board, and then you end up with a Ram Through and a couple Aspects of Hydra in your hand, you can just out of nowhere win just by destroying one of their creatures with Ram Through and dealing them a bunch of excess damage directly to their life total. So that's a super useful card. And like I said, the deck is a little bit tuned to that. So Trample is already a useful ability, but we've kind of prioritized that just even a little bit higher than normal because of its synergy with Ram Through. All right. Outland Liberator is the next one. 1 green for a 2/2, and it's costs 1, and you have to sacrifice it to destroy target artifact or enchantment. So obviously, if there's not an artifact or enchantment worth removing, you just don't do that, and you have a 2/2, which is not the best rate, but it's decent, right? It gets some work done, right? It also has Daybound. The first time that a permanent with Daybound or Nightbound enters, it becomes day. It starts out as day, and if a player casts no spells during their own turn, it becomes night the next turn, and then this flips to the Nightbound side. Also, importantly, if it's already night, so if you've already played one of these, you have 2 of them. I've already played one of them, and so it started becoming day and night. And if it's night currently, when you cast it, it enters as the Nightbound side. And if a player casts at least 2 spells during their own turn, it becomes day the next turn. All right. But the cool thing is this Nightbound side is just a bulkier version, basically. It has the same important ability to remove an artifact or enchantment, and it says that whenever it attacks, you destroy target artifact or enchantment, defending player controls. So you can hypothetically just destroy an artifact or enchantment every turn, right? That's kind of nice. Next one's also removal. This one's a very, very strong card, though, because it costs double green, so it plays into our green devotion theme, and it's a 3/3 for just 2 mana, so that also works out very nicely with the idea of bulky creatures. And this is our graveyard hate card, so you can pay a single mana and exile target card from a graveyard. Okay, obviously you can do that as many times as you want, as long as you have mana, right? And you can do that at instant speed. So if your opponent, for example, has a reanimation spell, they return target creature card from the graveyard to the battlefield, that kind of idea, you can just exile that card in response. Okay, and as long as there are 4 or more card types among cards exiled with Keen-Eyed Curator, it gets +4/+4 and has trample. That's obviously not going to come up in every game. Technically, you could do that by exiling your own stuff, but that's kind of an edge case. However, there are plenty of graveyard decks or graveyard-centric decks that rely on having 4 or more card types among cards in their graveyard. So there will be a nice selection for you to exile and turn this into a 7/7 with trample, right? And that's pretty cool. So next up we have another piece of removal, actually. So Trickster's Elk. This one costs 2 and a green for a 3/3, and you can just cast it as a 3 mana 3/3, and that's Not the worst thing, not the best thing either, right? Like we would want something more for our 3 mana. However, sometimes you just need a 3/3, and that it can work as, right? So that's not really why we're playing it though. It also has a bestow for 1 and a green. So this is an enchantment creature, okay? And so if you bestow it, it's not a creature, and it's just an aura. It's enchantment aura, and you enchant a creature. In this case, you're likely going to be enchanting your opponent's creatures. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a green elk creature with base power and toughness 3/3. Okay, so the really cool thing that you can do with this, say your opponent has some creature, say it is maybe very large, large enough that you can't really attack into it, or it has some obnoxious ability, indestructible, you name it, whatever ability that's causing you a problem. You can just pay 2 mana to bestow this Trickster's Elk as an aura on it, and it just turns into a 3/3 elk. And the thing is that a lot of your creatures are big enough that a 3/3 with no abilities is actually no problem, and you can just ram it through, or it blocks and you kill it without dying, stuff like that, right? So it's pretty easy to get rid of a 3/3 with no abilities. Okay, and when that creature does go away, the aura falls off, okay? And it falls off and becomes just a 3/3 creature that you control, okay? So it's actually very card advantageous removal, which is nice. So you can bestow it and then kill the creature and get this card as a creature on your side of the battlefield, which is just bonkers. It's very nice in a lot of cases. So it does also have 1 green for your green devotion, even when it's attached to your opponent's creature, because you still control the aura. All right. So a lot of interesting uses for that. Next up, we have Steel Leaf Champion, which very high devotion here. Green, green, green. Can't beat that. 5/4, and it can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. So it doesn't have Trample. However, it does have a very powerful form of evasion that in some situations will be even better than Trample, because if your opponent has, 10 1/1s, they still can't block it, right? Whereas they could block, for example, Old Growth Troll, which is green, green, green as well for a 4/4 this time, and it has Trample, and it has another really cool ability. When it dies, if it was a creature, you return to the battlefield, and it's an aura enchantment with Enchant Forest you control. And it gives this ability, okay? So basically, if it dies, you just bring it back and attach it to one of your forests, all right? And it gives that forest 2 abilities, all right? Tap, add green, green, so it's mana ramp. And the other ability it gives the forest is you can pay 1 and tap the forest and sacrifice the land, okay? And then you create a Troll Warrior, okay? So it's a tapped 4/4 green Troll Warrior creature token with Trample. So that's what this is over here, okay? One nice thing about that, obviously, is that you can get a Troll Warrior out of it, right? So you pay 3 mana, you get a 4/4, it dies somehow, and you can get another 4/4 with Trample. Obviously, that's very nice. Definitely have done that before. However, the other cool thing is that you can even just leave it attached to your forest and either use the mana ramp, which occasionally is nice, or just leave it there because it's still giving you the 3 devotion. Even while it's attached to your forest, it is it's a permanent that you control, and its devotion, it adds 3 to your devotion to green, right? So that can help your aspect of Hydras even after it dies. So very nice little creature. Obviously, it also just has Trample, unconditional. Like some of these others, you had to do something to give it Trample. This one just has Trample. So definitely a very good target for your ram through or aspect of Hydra. Bridgeworks Battle, this one is actually a double-sided land. So on the other side, we have a land that enters untapped if you pay 3 life. Okay. If you don't pay 3 life, it just enters tapped. However, if it's early game, you need to use it as a land, you'll likely want to pay the 3 life. Okay, and it just adds green. Okay. On the front side, though, it costs 2 and a green for a sorcery. It says target creature you control gets +2/+2 until end of turn. It fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. So that does mean that your opponent's creature will deal damage to your creature, but your creature will deal damage equal to its power to that creature, right? That's how fighting works. So sometimes you don't want to do that, which is why it's nice that it has that clause up to 1 target creature you don't control. Also, if your opponent doesn't have any creatures, you can still cast this. And the cool thing is that it just gives, you can just use this as a +2/+2 until end of turn, and or use it as a removal spell. And it has the land option on the back. So it's just a very flexible, very, very nice card. Smooths out our plans. Okay. Next up, we have Doomscar Warrior. Okay. Doomscar Warrior costs 2 green, and it's a 4/3. Right? And it has 3 abilities. One is Backup 1, which Backup 1 means that when it enters the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 encounter on a creature you control. Okay. And that could be Doomscar Warrior, or it could be some other creature. If it is some other creature, then that creature gets all the rest of these abilities until end of turn. Okay. If it's Doomscar Warrior, it just obviously has these abilities already, and cool. You just got a 5/4 for 4 mana. Okay. But those abilities are Trample. So again, just always has Trample, which is nice. And whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player or battle, look at that many cards in the top of your library. You may reveal a creature or land card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So say, it's a 4/3 and you attack with it. It doesn't get blocked. You deal 4 damage to your opponent. You just look at the top 4 cards of your library and just choose a creature or land and stick it in your hand. Okay, and the rest go on the bottom. So it's really kind of cool because you get to choose the cards. There's the card selection along with essentially card draw. Not technically card draw, but close. All right, and most that'll pick up most of the things you want. It will not pick up an Aspect of Hydra or Ram Through or Bridgeworks Battle, but it'll pick up anything else. All right. So this plus Werewolf Pack Leader, just drawing you a card. Those are both very solid options to keep your hand stocked with cards and continue applying pressure throughout the game. All right. Other than that, we just have 18 basic forests. Let's go to the playtester. All right, I would definitely mulligan this hand. Yeah, I can't do anything until turn 4. Yeah. All right. This one, though, is very good. We have 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop, and Aspect of Hydra. We definitely keep this one. Oh, and 3 lands. All right, so turn 1, we'll just play an Elvish Mystic, which the cool thing is, the way this deck is set up, we don't really have a big problem if this gets lightning bolted or whatever removed somehow, because we have several 2 drops as well. As it is, say it doesn't get removed, you play Old Growth Troll on turn 2, which is pretty good. All right, so here you could play second Old Growth Troll and then attack with the first one. Your devotion is already at 7. Okay, so this is a 4/4. Swing with Trample on turn 3, and you could hypothetically make it an 11/11. All right, so we'll say we probably got in for 4. Most people don't like chump blocking Trample creatures, right? Because they just lose too much. All right. I generally like to save my Aspect of Hydra until it will be lethal, but that's just personal preference. Okay, so now our devotion is 9. We could swing with a couple of 4/4s of Trample. That's just 8 damage, 8 trample damage already. And the cool thing is we can just wait till our opponent has declared blockers before we cast Aspect of Hydra. Okay. So they might not have blocked at all, figuring to go down to 8. Or they might have blocked something, hoping to kill it or whatever, in which case we can generally save it. So say they block with a 4/4. On this, we say, cool, it's actually let's see, 9 devotion. 9 plus 4 is 13. It's actually 13/13. So you still take 9 damage. And this one didn't get blocked, so you take a total of 13 damage. So now they're 3. And their big creature is gone, and yours is still around. And then you can just play a Werewolf Pack Leader, swing with all the stuff, and you've likely won the game now. And that's actually how a lot of games go. You don't, like I said, you don't really need the combo. You can just swing in with a bunch of big creatures, and that basically takes care of things. Anyways, I hope you enjoy this deck. Definitely, if you build it, please let me know how it goes. And if you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe so you can see other videos. And it also just helps me know that you enjoy it. So anyways, have a great time. See you next time.